Good afternoon, everyone. This is Charmaine coming to you from Charlotte, North Carolina. Communication, my final project for this semester, understanding dialectic of direction and change in the workplace. The reason that I chose this topic is because of where I work and the communication flow that I have between my teammates in management as well as upper management, dealing with the different changes that affects our work day on a daily basis, and how important it is to understand what someone else is saying and not what we think we hear someone else saying. So enjoy this presentation. In my work environment, I am a non-clinical supervisor working in a medical office with other supervisors. Most of them have clinical backgrounds, and at times our views are opposing because of the fact that we come from two different parts of the business, and what I suggest as far as what we need from a business perspective does not always match up with what other supervisors feel we need to do from a clinical standpoint. These differences also lead to opposing views, which create communication barriers. And when trying to establish processes and procedures for our office, we often end in conflict. During this time, I realized that ethical decisions are not always crystal clear. There are times when we have to make difficult decisions. The people that I work with do not all share the same morals and ethical compass. And when we have these moral and ethical decisions to make, I have in times gone to different sides of the ethical standard with opposing views. My views and my principles differ from those of my counterparts. And as these changes occur, we face dialectic of direction and change because we are coming from opposing viewpoints. According to Arnett, Fritz, and Bell, the dialectic of direction and change is the willingness to follow a particular path with the courage to move in a different direction when necessary. In my role, I have to be open to moving in a different direction even when I don't support the direction, although it may be the best choice for my organization and their pattern of growth. The differences in communication can create issues between me and various members of my team, which leads to one of the ethical issues I discussed in my paper and I will discuss in this presentation, which is interpersonal communication ethics, what that means to me and what the textbook definition is of this particular concept. Interpersonal communication ethics is when we have concern for the relationship and would like to promote what is considered the good of the relationship. The definition, as laid out by Arnett in our text, interpersonal communication works with the good of the relationship between and among a small number of people. In my immediate work group, it is a small number of us. However, we have a big impact on what happens to our organization. A key concept within this interpersonal communication ethics is to keep internal communication at a distance. And it may sound strange, but distance is a very real part of keeping communication open. According to Arnett, Fritz, and Bell, distance and interpersonal relationship provides necessary space for each partner to contribute to the relationship. Distance is not a physical act. Distance, in this case, is a separation of emotions so that boundaries of the relationship can be respected. In my experience at work, it often leads to a separation of emotions. When it comes to making sure the boundaries are respected, again, as I mentioned earlier, my work and my ethics flow from a non-clinical standpoint, although I have to make decisions that affect patient care. My counterparts come from a clinical background, and their understanding of what needs to happen from a clinical standpoint is often very different. This separation of emotion helps to keep our working relationship positive. The distance that we create as far as setting boundaries and making sure that we have a mutual respect for what the other person is saying helps to keep the opposing views open to learning what the other's perspective is and how to make the relationship and the communication work for the good of the organization. The direction of the organization's upper management staff has determined that changes are necessary for the success of our organization, which means we as professionals should display business and professional communication. That requires us to read the public direction of the organization and discern necessary moments of change. Throughout this process, I have encountered issues where one member of my team feels like it is okay to do one thing to enhance our schedules, while I have an opposing view, which I feel would minimize patient care. During these episodes of discussion and the opposing views, sometimes the lack of professionalism becomes apparent when we allow our emotions to overtake the situation. Unfortunately, these things have occurred more times than I would like. So realizing that there are tools to help discern the necessary moments of change would be a great asset to me as well as other members of my team. In the future, to avoid these type of issues, I would recommend that all parties listen, be attentive to what is being said, and negotiate the responses as it relates to our situations and help to develop our interpersonal relationship. Dialogic ethics requires that all parties listen to what the demands are from other people without forcing. Dialogic ethics requires that both parties listen without making demands or forcing their views on other people. Everyone has the right to be heard, and we should allow that respectfully. In my personal case, there have been times that because I did not agree with someone's view, I would shut down from the conversation, which was not professional, and it did not help to grow the business. And others have done the same. So this is one of the recommendations that I would have going forward for my organization as well as myself. Keep it in mind that different things motivate individuals differently, and we all bring who we are into every meeting, every situation, and every discussion. Dialectics of direction and change, we should always be open to opposing views and thought processes, because that's the only way we can genuinely and ethically be sound. If we do not understand and perform these processes, then we are showing unethical behavior. We need to focus on interpersonal relationships to ensure that everyone commits to and takes responsibility for their relationships. In this environment, a medical office in which changes occur very often and often without notice, we have to be open to what can happen in order for our working relationship to remain professional and for the organization to continue to grow. There are implications in the event that we do not take these changes to heart. If we do not focus on making these changes, we could lose good staff, our patient base. We could also have a loss of our patients, and it creates tension within the office. So it is very important that we remember this while we're implementing changes and realize the implications of not respecting the changes that are in place or the communication between individuals. On the other hand, if we do implement these changes, we could produce a better workflow, implement changes that will help to grow the business, promote better communication between all levels of management and staff, and continue to be a positive force of medical office practices on the East Coast and continue to grow our business. With this, we can do a lot of great things that will benefit the community at large as well as our individual organization. I appreciate you taking the time to listen to my presentation, and I hope that it helps you. Working with anyone in any relationship requires patience, and if we don't take the time to realize that patience, open communication, listening makes a difference, then we fail to grow as individuals and as an organization. It has been a pleasure to bring this presentation to you. Again, this is Charmaine Norwood.